There's a bunch of ways to measure senior. Whoa, is that an apple on my face? That means I'm a senior engineer. There's a bunch of ways to measure seniority of an engineer. And I'll give you three that goes from intern up to distinguished in under 2 minutes. So a junior engineer, and I'll include interns here, will need help. They'll know how to do some things, and they will need help to do a lot of things. And then the difference between junior and intern is just how much help do they need. But they're both going to need quite a bit of help. A mid-level engineer can do some things on their own, but they will often only know how to do it like one way, and it may not be the best way. The mark of a senior engineer, first of all, they don't need any hand-holding. They can just take care of a project themselves, end to end. Second of all, they understand multiple ways to do the same thing, and they can compare and contrast at the framework level. So if you know React, you might be a junior or mid-level. If you know React and Vue and Svelte, you don't need to know those three, but if you know a few frameworks and you can compare and contrast them for the particular use case and make an informed decision, now you're a senior, and now you have rightly the responsibility and role to author design docs. Mid-level engineers may be able to provide useful feedbacks. Maybe you missed a note and they can call that out. So a design doc is going to be a really good marker here for a senior. Staff engineers will often be able to pick the best way to do something across the industry. So a senior will often know the best way to do it at your company, but they will often be picking from building blocks that are familiar or accepted at your company. So you might have a stack that our company does it this way, and the senior knows how to implement that stack. Or you might have two options, and the senior knows how to pick the right one. Or you might have some building blocks at your company, and the senior engineer knows how to pick the right building blocks for different categories and assemble them into an app. The senior engineer is rarely introducing things that are not used at your company. And the staff engineer will have all the skills of the senior and will often have skills outside of the company. And they will say, oh, here's a use case. Let me introduce this tool that I used at this other company. So that one of the easiest ways to become a staff or principal is to be a senior engineer at a few different companies and ideally have a sub-industry overlap like fintech, edtech. These are sub-industries within tech so that you get domain expertise so that a staff engineer is very much like a senior engineer with advanced domain expertise and also familiarity of industry level quality practices that may not exist at this company. And they can help introduce those and win influence and win approval for those processes. Another way to look at the staff engineer is that they lead the seniors. So seniors are going to be doing some of the highest level coding, and staff engineers will need to be able to match that ideally, but then they also have these qualities of influence where they can get a bunch of seniors behind them, formally and informally. And then you go to the principals, and first of all, some companies don't even have staff or principal. You might have one or the other, but it's basically just more influence, more leadership, so that if you have principals and no staff, now the principals are the ones leading the seniors. If you have principals and staff, the principals are basically the ones who can lead the staff engineers. So they have these leadership and influence traits, but they have them to a larger magnitude, similar to the way that a junior needs help, but the intern needs it to a larger magnitude. Staff and principal are along the same role. They're both considered like leadership roles, but the principal will just do this even at a higher level. Staff engineers and principal engineers often fall into a bunch of archetypes. So there's like a solver type who's like extremely technical specialist in writing code. So they go like way beyond what the typical senior would do for some niche area. The other would be like a team lead who's really good at the technical ops and the people ops. Maybe they're like transitioning towards a manager kind of thing. Then there's an architect who may be out of the specific code and deals more with the higher level abstractions, like how do you assemble EC2 or EKS, like the systems level. And then there's this type called the right hand, which is really interesting, which is like someone who works pretty much directly with an advanced people leader, like a director plus, and they kind of just do whatever that person wants. And they're kind of these like Marine Corps people who they can single-handedly go like do a task that that person wants. That's this right hand. There are some others, but those would be the ones covered in the Will Larson book, Staff Engineer. If you Google like staff archetypes or principal archetypes, principal engineer archetypes, you'll find some others. I think there's a Spotify blog that talks about a product leader. And it's true, like a really good engineer can also think like a product manager. So that, yeah, part of being able to influence in a engineering enterprise is being able to say, hey, I understand what's valuable to this enterprise, and you can see the sub-industry expertise coming in here. I'm familiar with regulation in this industry or whatever, so that I have a product idea that is regulatorily compliant. It's like practical, it's feasible, it's going to earn us a return. And that's actually a powerful ability to gain influence if you can think both like an engineer and like a product manager. We're way past 2 minutes, I own that, but we're in the last minute. So now we get to distinguished level. So distinguished level can mean just like a super seasoned principal, but what it very often means, you start to over-represent the inventor class here. So true inventors coming up with real novel technologies. They're not picking best in industry, they are innovating over the best in industry. They're already aware of the best practices and they're doing something new. That is overrepresented, not required at the distinguished level. These people will more frequently have research papers, patents, and so on. They may be framework creators as opposed to framework users. And not just like creator of a framework, like I have a repo that has like 10 stars, but like creator of like React, okay? I just checked, so Jordan Walk created React. I'm not sure if his title is distinguished. He's at Facebook, he's been there 14 years. His LinkedIn just says software engineer. Hey Jordan, I totally just creeped on you. Dan Abramov made React. I don't know that he has a distinguished title either. I would give him one. I mean, if it was up to me. I think those are some of the caliber of people that I'm thinking of. And then you also have someone like a Linus Torvalds who like created Git in the Linux kernel. His title is fellow, so there is this title fellow, which is sometimes equivalent to and sometimes a level above distinguished. I blur the line on both of them. I consider both distinguished, senior distinguished, and fellows to all be like the inventor class. And maybe you could do a gradation difference here, like the difference between intern and junior, where they both need help, but different levels of severity. So maybe the distinguished and the fellow are both inventors, but different levels of distinguishedness of their inventions, maybe something like that. Just re-emphasizing, because you've created a library does not make you distinguished caliber. When I'm talking about inventions, I'm talking about like broadly used, like raising the bar of the entire industry level inventions. Well, that's how I think of distinguished level engineers and fellows. Hope you found this interesting. Follow for more.